Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of part 5 of a story where DxD universe reacts to betrayed Villain-Issei. But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more information. Now let's get into part 5. The audience had settled down in the theater, knowing this would be their final viewing for the day. As many saw Ingvild and Mary still seated far away from them, they decided to keep their distance from the faction leaders, minus those who supported them. They could do nothing but watch in sadness. Meanwhile, Revan came inside the theater as he spoke. Before we begin the viewing, I have brought some guests. You might want to come out now. The first person who came out was described to be he saw a beautiful young woman in her 20s with flawless skin and a voluptuous body. She has long dark brown hair and stormy blue eyes, which are described as the color of the sky during a thunderstorm. She is said to have a calm and serene aura. Hades was left agape by this. Even those that recognized her were left agape were surprised by this. This was Persephone, the goddess of the Underworld, spring and growth, as well as the wife of Hades. The second person was a vampire with a doll-like appearance with long wavy light blonde hair, deep red eyes, and a beautiful face similar to that of a Western doll. She wore a red dress worn by princesses back in the Middle Ages with an ornamented headdress. The leaders and the resident of the Hyoudou mansion were surprised to see her as well. The third person that showed was a very familiar face to many of the guests, especially those who knew of Issei's connection to her. She was described to be an attractive young woman with violet eyes and a curvaceous, slender body. She had long, silky black hair that reached down to her hips. Her clothing consisted of black, strap-like objects, resembling leather around and under her breasts, a thong-like piece held around her hips by 3 thin straps, gloves that ran right up her arms with small lengths of chains hanging from them, shoulder guard-like objects on her shoulders with 3 large spikes sprouting from her right shoulder, and black thigh-high heeled boots. They all have been well briefed on what happened, so no need to explain any of them. Revan spoke with a smile as Persephone glared at Hades, who could only sink down in sadness. Amenhotep was also glaring at Rias and the others for betraying Issei, while she frowned at Gasper for acting like this, while Mary asked to Ingvild, "Who is she?" Ingvild looked at her and responded silently, "That is Rainer, Issei's ex-girlfriend who killed him. She is partially the reason why Issei was a devil." Mary nodded. As she glared at her, Rainer felt a chill, but did not know why. She looked around, seeing some familiar faces. She felt even more worry, however, that soon changed when she saw Asia. She walked towards her with Rias stepping in the way and speaking, "Back away, Rainer. Why shouldn't I? You all cheated on Issei with this." Rainer looked at Reu, who flinched as she spoke. Brother of his turns to Rias like, "I may also have betrayed Issei, and in the end we are the same." Rias Gremory, "We are not the same, Rainer. I am above you in terms of." Rainer cuts her off and responds while wiggling her fingers, "No, we are the same in terms of what we are. We both betrayed a second, and we both have messed him up big time." "I must stop you right there, Rainer." The one who spoke was Mary. As she walked towards her, her tone was completely serious as Rainer wondered who she was, while Rias and the other guests wondered what Mary would do to her. Azazel decided to join her once she was done as well. He wanted to expel her from Grigori before that, but unfortunately she had died as well. "Who the fuck are you?" Rainer asked with utter disdain. "Who is this human that dared to disrespect her?" As Mary spoke with a smile, "His older sister. It is not nice to meet you, and I'd appreciate if you stopped calling my brother Issei-kun." Rainer gritted her teeth, remembering the humiliating defeat at the hands of her brother. She remembered on how powerful he is, and how powerful he has become. "So you're his older sister," Rainer spoke with a growl, as she tried to punch her. Normally, Revan would have stopped this, but he knew that Mary will put her in her place. Mary grabbed the fist and crushing it, making Rainer scream in pain. "Aya! Did you really think I am weak? I may be human, but this human will put you in your place if he so wanted to. Lowest scum." Rainer fell to the ground as he drops her. Rainer's hands got healed thanks to the theater. She cried, remembering the pain. It seemed like both siblings will be someone that will always terrify her. Azazel soon walked to her and spoke coldly, "Hello, Rainer." Rainer shivered seeing the man in front of him as she spoke with fear, Azazel-sama. I heard what you did. I made very clear orders to observe Issei Hyoudou, but you disobeyed my orders, didn't you? What's worse is that you even stole sacred gear removal documents and performed it on Asia Argento, didn't you? You disobeyed my every single order. Azazel spoke angrily, as Rainer shuddered upon this. As she spoke, I wanted to make you be proud. Azazel gave a frustrated sigh. As he glared at her, he then continued, I was going to do this a long time ago, but if Free Van does revive you in our world, you are no longer welcome in Grigori for your actions. You supported Kakabeel, a rogue cadre, and I don't want to see you ever again in the territory of Grigori. Azazel walked away, leaving Rainer crying. It hurt Azazel to do this. But this is her punishment. If she changes herself, then only she is welcome probably. But until then, she is in exile. Rainer blamed Issei for her condition. Meanwhile, Ingvild was having her own conversation with the Gremry girls as she spoke. Really, infidelity. What were you thinking? I just thought that maybe Ingvild cuts her off and responds, maybe he is better. The fact that you chose to replace Issei with his brother shows how much you really cared for him. Do everyone a favor and stay away from him. Ingvild spoke with anger as she asked Revan, how is Issei? He is healing right now, so he will be alright, but you will need to give him some time. Ingvild nodded as Riaz and the girls looked down in shame and sadness while she looked at Ravel, Asia and Irina. Out of the girls, I really did not expect the three of you to turn against him. You all should be ashamed of yourselves. The three Mentians started to cry in sadness as she knew that this is what would have happened. Almenhold was about to walk away when she heard a something in the audience. Slap. This got everyone's attention as they all looked at the person who did this. This was Persephone, who had slapped Hades as she had tears in her eyes. Upon closer inspection, one could see Hades's jaw almost ripped out. I can't believe after my death, this is what you have become. The man I loved was not a hateful being who hated other beings. What happened to the man I loved? Persephone almost yelled in anger, as Hades remained speechless. No one said anything. No one even snickered seeing Hades' estate. Some of the guests feared the goddess's wrath. Persephone shook her head and spoke angrily. Don't make excuses. Your actions have killed people, Hades. You were the best amongst your brothers, especially amongst Poseidon and Zeus. I really don't know what to say. Persephone remained silent for a few moments as she then spoke. But it is not too late to make amends. You can do it. Because I believe in you, you can still change. Hades remained quiet as he spoke with a sad tone. It is too late for me, Perse. If you really believe that, then you are lost. Hades. Persephone spoke while walking away and sitting a few seats away from Hades. As Hades looked away sadly, his bone healed, as Persephone had 2 tears in her eyes which she rubbed so that no one could notice. Some looked towards Hades with pity and sadness. Several others believed he deserved this, as they hoped that he may change in the future, while the rest did not care for the Greek god of the underworld. Oh, that reminds me, forgot to bring those 2 here. Revan snapped his fingers as 2 people came into the area. Those that were in Kwe and the supernatural were surprised to see them here. They were Kayamabe and Issei. Kayamabe was described to be a busty young woman with long, brown hair arranged in multiple drill-like curls. The second being Issei, wears spectacles, has gold-colored eyes and lightly messy brunette hair tied into braids on each side. She wears the Kwa Academy girls' school uniform. Lavinia was surprised to see her apprentice here, and they were just starting their training with magic. Hello, you two. Issei and Kyom were on guard as she looked at Revan and asked, Who are you? My name is Revan and I am about to show you the multiverse of Issei Hyoudou. Although before we begin, here is something you need to know about what happened so far. Revan snapped his fingers as they all felt a memory surge of the events that had happened so far. They almost fell to the ground in sadness as Issei witnessed her mentor being killed by Issei. While Kion was devastated knowing what Rias did, Issei spoke with sadness. I can't believe you would do this to him after everything he did for you. Issei spoke with sadness as she looked towards the church trio. I saw how much you 3 liked and cared for him. Was that a lie as well? The church trio remained silent while crying as Kayam asked Revan with concern, Issei, how is he doing? Better than when I first found him. And why don't you all take up your seats? We are already past the viewing time. The others who were not seated nodded as Raynor sat far away from the rest of the factions since no one wanted her near them. Biolo, Mehold, and Kayam sat next to Ingvild and Mary, who greeted them properly knowing that they cared for Issei still, and finally Ika Kuyo sat beside Lavinia and Team/Dog, the former greeting her properly. Alright, let the show begin. Revan started playing the show as the viewing finally began. He did what? Goro asked in surprise. He had heard Asia tell him about him leaving the house with 2 duffel bags. He was going somewhere, he did not tell me where, and he just left believing that we don't deserve to know. Asia spoke in a neutral tone. I see. Goro spoke in understanding. Goro and Mickey both looked down in sadness, remembering how cruel their counterparts are, while the others were silent, knowing that he was finally going to have a small, happier life. Mary wondered how close Issei and the Hades' family were in this reality. She could see that even others had the same questions, at least those beside her. It is good that he is gone. He should stay far away. Rhea spoke with utter fear while remembering how helpless she was when he put Azazel and Valerie and defeated them with ease. Even most of her peerage agreed to what Rhea's had spoken. Akendo remembered the hallucinations Issei put her through when she attacked him in his room for insulting her Hinata. Despite her being a robot, she shivered remembering what had happened. Even those from Dai's peerage like Asia, Ravel, Rogeri, Sanzanovia, were fearful of what he is capable of. Valentine was not present as she was being taken care of in the Underworld due to her injuries. Valerie paled at how brutally she was dealt with the concept. Issei's hands, while Azazel and Vala's team shuddered at Issei's brutality. He was not someone they wanted to mess with. They feared what he is capable of. The others mentioned on screen were equally afraid of this Azazel at this point. He is someone that wouldn't hesitate to take his enemies down no matter the cost. Even Dai himself was fearful. Rhea's words were not wrong. However, Ika, despite her fear, she was angry at what Issei had done, as Mickey spoke. Either way, let's have our dinner. There is nothing we can do. Mickey's voice was stern. She was surprised by how cold and brutal Issei was. As they all start to eat in silence, the house has not been the same ever since Akino's change in nature. The audience agreed. Even the newer ones were weary of Issei's nature, especially Raynor, who was the most fearful of Issei at this point. After eating, they all left to head back to their rooms, as Dai once again spoke to Ingvild, who just ignored him again. Why is she ignoring me? Dai muttered in confusion. He looked at the other girls. However, they were as clueless as Dai was. We hope that Ingvild did not come to know about the truth, otherwise, everything he has done will crumble to dust. It is only a matter of time before your empire that you have created by your lies falls to the ground. Crom thought. He was thinking of going to say, if he ever got the chance, but unfortunately, he did not know whether this would ever happen. I did not know why, but he felt a chill. Something was going to happen to him in the future. I pity my counterpart who is with a scoundrel like Daikram, spoke with a sigh. He agreed with his counterpart's words as he knew that the empire of lies this prideful brat, while Ryu angrily agreed with Crom, although he did not show it since they did not know how audience would react. And it seems like even we are silent due to our wielders, Tiamat spoke sadly as Albion and Vitra agreed. It seemed like in this reality, they seemed to be more slaves of Dai at this point, who was controlling their wielders. Issei was standing on the boat, the river person was taking him too, as the boat person, who was Sharon, stopped. Issei removed a gold coin from the Greek era. This was a coin meant for the payment, however, Sharon refused it. That won't be necessary, young man. After all, Lady Persephone has personally asked you to visit her. Sharon spoke with a smile. However, this was not noticed by Issei due to his dark robe. It's true, Sharon is known to often ferry those depending on his mood across the river Styx. However, the standard price of the ferry is 1 gold coin from the Greek era. If you don't have that, you will become a wandering spirit. The audience shuddered at those that ended up being a wandering spirit. They wondered what kind of a person Sharon was. Hades and Persephone were not in a mood to speak due to what happened earlier. They did not know what they are going to say, as Ryu asked. May I ask a question? Ryu's words seemed fearful as Revan spoke with a smile. Go ahead. What is on the other side once Sharon ferries you across the river Styx? Revan paused the viewing and explained, very well. I will explain what happens next. The audience unfamiliar with the place nodded. Those that did, let Revan explain everything. Once you reach the other side, you will be judged by the 3 judges of the Underworld, ruled under Hades. Once there, souls face judgment before the 3 judges of the dead, Rhadamanthus, Minos, and Aeacus. The fate of the souls is determined based on their deeds during their earthly lives, Revan then continued. Once done, you can go into one of 3 locations. The first is the Elysian Fields, a kind of paradise or blissful existence. It is a place where the souls of the virtuous and heroic individuals may find themselves after death. The second place was the Asphodel Meadows. The Asphodel Meadows is either a place of punishment like Tartarus, which I will get to later, nor a realm of reward like the Elysian Fields. Instead, it's considered a kind of middle ground for souls who led average lives without extreme virtues or vices. The third and the final place is Tartarus. It serves as a place of punishment for the most wicked and rebellious people. They are endlessly tortured and is the real definition of a true hell. The torments can include unending suffering, such as being chained, tortured, or subjected to other forms of perpetual agony. The audience, unaware, listened intently as they all nodded in agreement. They were aware of the world now. Revan played the viewing. No, I insist. I am a traveler after all, right? Issei insisted him to take the coin. Sighing, Sharon reluctantly accepted the coin. He then wished twice of travels, as he walked towards the underworld throne room of Hades. It was a huge mansion, which was almost akin to a model house. Issei looked at the place with a smile as he remembered that a lot of changes had happened to Hades's domain ever since Persephone came back to his life. I forgot to mention, this Hades is different from the one in this room. In case you guys didn't know, Persephone seemed intrigued by this. She knew how her husband was before his fall into the monster he is today. She looked at Hades, seeing him saddened. She hoped that Hades will change as time passes by. Nyx looked at Hades and felt bad for him. She did know he will change, and believed in him even if he did not. It had become much more cheerful, and much more green in nature, as Persephone was literally the light of Hades's life. Rubbing head to not remember her past, he walked inside. The house was warm. Its interior was well decorated with different types of flowers. There he sensed an aroma, as he presumed to be home-cooked meals. Hades remembered the home-cooked meals Persephone used to make him when she was alive. He shook his head, remembering more of his past. Persephone also felt sad, remembering more of her past, while the audience wondered what Hades was before his descent into tyranny. He walked inside, where he saw a beautiful young woman in her 20s, with flawless skin and a voluptuous body. She has long dark brown hair and stormy blue eyes, which are described as the color of the sky during a thunderstorm. She is said to have a calm and serene aura. She wears a noble black and red dress decorated with beautiful roses and black fishnet stocking. She wears designer high heels shoes. She also wears a crown formed from roses and a golden necklace with a bright red jewel attached to it. However, she currently wore an apron. Persephone, Issei happily exclaimed. Persephone turned around to see Issei as she beamed in happiness, seeing him after a very long time. Issei-chan. Persephone happily exclaimed in return as the goddess of the underworld and fertility immediately brought him into a loving embrace as they both hugged for a while. Issei melted into the hug. It took him a while to realize that the goddess was next to him. Not that he minded, given that felt warm. He hasn't felt this for a long time, and he did not want to let go. Many felt happy seeing this caring side of Issei still remained. They were happy seeing that there are still some people that cared for Issei. Persephone and Hades did not know how to react to this. On one hand, Persephone felt happy that Issei cared for her, and she for him, but to her Issei was still someone she just came to know about moments prior, while Hades was confused on this, wondering when Issei and Persephone became close. The others were also uncertain what their relationship was, while Mickey and Guru had a bad feeling about what will happen. He did eventually let her go, as Persephone put her hand on Issei's shoulders and wrapped her around him. Her actions felt motherly to Issei, asking, "How have you been?" Persephone asked with happiness. "I am not going to lie, my life has been getting better since the past 2 days, Issei responded with a smile. "That's good." Persephone beamed in response. She still remembered how sad Issei was when the last time he was here. She then remembered how he was the last time she had met him, and that was 1 year 3 months ago. The audience wondered what happened the last time he had visited, as Mary then asked, "Wait a minute, could it be?" Revan gave a nod, as Mary knew what this meant. This was when Ingvild completely rejected him for Di. She remained quiet, knowing full well what this meant. The others wondered what Mary had meant. "Okay, now, we will begin the flashback. I hope y'all are ready." The audience nodded in understanding, except Mary, who remained quiet. "It's okay, Ice-chan, it's gonna okay." Persephone spoke while rubbing Issei's back. She was there for him when an incident happened. "How can it be okay, Persephone? She chose that damn Di over me again. Nobody believes that I saved her from Nyx. And now, even she thinks that I am a liar." Eyes spoke while crying. Persephone was sad on the outside, but in reality, she was furious, especially towards Di for doing this to him. Hades was also next to him, as he spoke. "Ice, I have no words to say, but there is nothing you can do. You have no proof to prove innocent. It's time you let go." Hades's voice was sad. Like Persephone, he hated what had happened to his heart was broken. It reminded him of what happened to Persephone. Hades agreed with his counterpart, while Persephone could see that her counterpart felt helpless, calming his down. They felt sad for Issei. Ingvild and Mary hated Ingvild's counterpart. Similar emotions were present in Azazel, Yusaka and her daughter Kunu, Valerie and her team, Olmenhild, Team/Dog, Ikakiryu and Kaim. Others felt sad for Issei, except for one. The only one happy seeing Issei suffer is Rainer, who enjoyed seeing him in grief, although she did not show it. "But I can't, my heart still loves her. And it pains me to see her with Di." Issei spoke with utter sadness. He sniffled, as Hades spoke. "I think you should rest in the room, you should sleep for now." Issei looked at him, and nodded. He just walked away, showing barely any emotions. Persephone did not want him go. Her maternal instincts were causing her to rush to him. Hades stopped her as she protested. "Darling, he needs me." "I know, Perse, I know, but his heart is broken. We can't do anything about it. I can't believe his younger brother would do this to him." Again, Hades spoke with sadness and ending with a growl. "Revan, can I ask a question?" Revan had a feeling what may happen next, as he spoke. "If you wish to know what relationship this Hades and Persephone have with their Issei, then it is that of parental bond. In other words, to this Issei, he sees Hades and Persephone as his parents, their family as his. While Hades and Persephone view Issei as their son, to them, blood is not what binds relationships, it is heart what counts." Revan's words made the Hada family minus Mary devastated. The parents hated what their counterparts did to his aid. Mary was saddened by this revelation, hating her family's counterpart for doing this to his aid. Although, seeing how happy this Issei was with them, she couldn't blame this for happening. Persephone and Hades were stunned by this. They never thought that they would be taking a former mortal as their adopted child. Regardless, they were even more curious as to what developments their counterparts would have with this Issei. Even then, both seemed to be happy with Issei joining their family. Hades pondered whether his counterpart was intending to destroy the Longinus beings and other supernatural beings or not. The others did not know how to react. Some calmed the Hyoudou family, while others needed some time to process this revelation. Honestly, how can he do this? Even Zeus is not like that. Why can't he let his brother live in peace? Seriously, once he even treads in your realm, I will make sure to torture him. Persephone spoke with sheer spite and a cold tone as Hades nods in agreement to her request. Both of them could only watch as Issei went inside the room he was given to them. Persephone came in much later only to see Issei crying in his sleep. Her heart clenched as she embraced him that night to show that he is not alone. Persephone smiled in happiness seeing this, knowing that she would have done for Issei if he was her son. While some others felt bad for Issei, after which this resulted in happiness, after seeing the goddess of springtime calming him down. Vicky couldn't help but cry seeing this, while Garu and the rest of the Hyoudou family consoled her. Persephone, Issei called her as she was in her trance. Ai's chant, sorry, just was remembering something. Persephone spoke with a wry smile while rubbing her head. She then remembered, oh right, darling doesn't know you are visiting. Hades smiled, remembering Persephone used to do this when she was alive. Those were the good memories they had. That was all that remains when someone dies. Wait. Hades doesn't know I am here? Issei asked as Persephone shook her head and responded. Nope, I kept it a surprise. The truth is that he has been overworked by paperwork, so I thought that I could surprise him. I hope you don't mind. Persephone spoke while looking away, with slight sadness, as Issei denied it and responded. No, I understand, I would love to meet him. Persephone beams at this and responds. Great, then let's go, we can eat the food later. Persephone spoke with a smile, as she pulled his aide towards Hades' study room. The audience were curious as to see what was going to happen. They wondered what Hades was like in this world. Hades himself was curious at this as well. A man was sitting on the desk. This was Hades, in his human form. He took form of a tall and handsome man with a specially designed eye patch on his right eye and long, stylish silver hair that spikes up at various spots on his head. He shone with a leaf-like pattern tattooed across his forehead, a spiked choker necklace lined, and a bead-like earring on his left ear with many smaller piercings. His attire is shown to be quite formal and extravagant, with a collar that spans all the way to his upper chest and badges decorated on the left and right side of his coat. Finally, he wears long white jeans and a pair of shoes filled with square patterns. Hades was working in his study room trying to complete his paperwork. This was all thanks to Zeus dumping several of his paperwork. The reason was that this was his punishment due to him helping the Cows Brigade. Puck Zeus and this paperwork, can't believe I am made to do this. Hades exclaimed angrily while smashing the desk. The faction leaders could relate with Hades. Paperwork was the bane of everyone's existence. Persephone remembered this was how her Hades used to look like. Well, at least he doesn't look like a catacomb or Ainsco's Blair. Azazel spoke with a mocking tone, earning a glare from the god of the underworld. Some of the guests chuckled at the insult, including Mary. Some pitied Hades' fate, especially those that had to deal with a lot of paperwork. Mountains of paperwork was stashed on the sides of Hades' desk. He still had to fill up 1,000 more of these. He wished he could have his Grim Reapers help him, but they were too busy handling the rest of the underworld. I hate my life. Hades fell on his desk with his head down, crying, hoping that someone could save him from this hell. Nobody can save any leader from the hell of paperwork. Sergesix spoke with fear, agreeing with this alternate of Hades. Even the other leaders agreed with the fear of paperwork. Some leaders frowned at what Zeus had done for Hades. Sure, he was an asshole in this universe, but this was a fate worse than death. Hades then realized why should he do Zeus's work. It was not his domain. His domain was the underworld. He had a smirk on his face. It was time to play the evil god. Using a small fire magic, he immediately burned the stack of papers that belonged to Zeus. He left no trace of the paper as every single paper burned. He did put a protective barrier on his stack of papers before. Let's see what happens next. Zeus Hades had a sinister smirk on his face. Hades gave a small smile as he had a feeling that they would be doing this, while Persephone knew this was how the old Hades would act. She also remembered Zeus doing this in her timeline when he wanted to go to sleep with another mortal woman sometimes. She wondered how many demigod children he had. I pity what is going to happen to Olympus. Azazel muttered to himself while thinking on what would happen if they wanted to get rid of paperwork. I wish I could do that. Circeus muttered to himself, as Graphia, who was nearby, asked, What was that, Circeus-sama? Then nothing. The leaders understood Circeus' pain, since paperwork can break even the strongest of the leaders. However, as he watched the paper burn, somebody knocked on the door. Darling, someone is here to see you. Persephone's voice was heard as Hades was removing the flames as soon as possible. He gritted his teeth in annoyance as the flames were not easy to remove. Wait, I am just doing stuff. Hades exclaimed, worried that his wife will get angry if she finds out once the flames died off. He breathed a sigh of relief. He opens the door as he is surprised to see who it is. Persephone gave a sweet smile to Hades, who had a bad feeling about what would happen next. He did not know why. He was shivering. He must be doing this in secret whenever no one would find out. Look who is here to visit! Persephone exclaimed happily, as Hades gave a hearty smile. I'll be surprised. How have you been, Issei? Hades exclaimed happily, as he brought Issei in a bear-crushing hug. However, Issei was unaffected by the god of the underworld strength. He can take a whole lot of strength. After splitting up, Issei spoke. And better, speaking of which were our Melano and Macaria? Issei asked, remembering Hades and Persephone talking about their daughters the last time he had visited. Oh them, we decided to enroll them in the College of the Human World. I believed it would be best to learn some human culture and customs. Hades spoke with a smile as he remembered convincing his daughters to spend a few years. So Hades, where are the girls? Persephone asked Hades, to which Hades responded, they are still in the underworld. I made sure to not let them out after what happened to you. I see. Persephone internally smiled. His protective nature was still there. She knew that he can change. He just needed to believe in himself. Which one? Issei asked in interest. We were planning to send them to Core Academy at first, since you were there, and they could keep you company. But then we realized that your bastard of your brother would try to flirt with them, so they are studying in Stafford University in England. Hades spoke with a smile, as Issei sighed in relief. Persephone vividly remembered that they were close to making a mistake, and they were happy that they sent them to England and made all the necessary arrangements so that the angel faction doesn't bother them. That was actually a good idea, Cercicus commented as Persephone nodded in agreement. She wouldn't want her two daughters to go near him. Rai looked down in sadness for what his counterpart would have done, and Stafford University is one of the best universities in England, as is Aladdin his own words, to which Valerie spoke. I'd say, it is one of top-ranking universities. I wished to visit there once. Not that they would be able to do much to his daughters, anyways, since they are well versed with Greek magic. The angels gulped in fear. They did not want one of the goddesses coming behind them, and if the girls get hurt, then they are done for. That's good, otherwise, well, they may have been charmed by Dionysus. Spoke with fear, as Hades spoke in an assuring tone. I swear on the river Styx, I won't let that bastard even come close to my girls, Hades declared. He will not let anyone he doesn't trust near his daughters. I agree with my counterpart on that one, Hades muttered, to which Persephone agreed with Hades on that one. She knew Ryu is not D, but they do share each other's arrogance. Over the centuries, Persephone was familiar with arrogance, and when she was brought back to life and given all the information she needed, she was not surprised that humans were capable of such arrogance, but to eyes, that was on a whole different level. She couldn't help but be appalled by it. Anyways, enough about that, the food is getting cold, let's go and eat, Persephone spoke, trying to change the subject, to which both men nodded and headed towards the dining table. This actually seems like a regular family dinner, Mary muttered to Yusaku and Ingvild, who nodded in agreement. In the dinner table, Persephone and Hades were having their food, where narrated his experiences, and after that I told to Zeus's face, not my monkeys, not my circus. Issei narrated the time when he headed to the faction meetings, with Hades laughing in agreement. Even Persephone cracked open a smile. He, that to Zeus's face, requires some real balls. You really are something, Hades spoke while calming his laughter. I agree. Saying that to the god of thunder is really something. This Issei really is something else, that on his face. Azazel spoke while chuckling as some of the audience agreed to Azazel's words. I plan on bringing Zeus and his pantheon soon enough, so I would suggest you better deal with them before they actually end up becoming an obstacle. Issei-Revan's words made the audience quiet enough, as they knew what he was trying to do. Revan had plans to deal with Zeus and his faction if he does become a problem. They really expected me to help them, even after admonishing and humiliating me. They really think I would accept that? Issei spoke in a neutral tone as Persephone shook her head sideways, entitlement at its finest. Then again, I expected this from Zeus. Persephone spoke in a disappointed tone. Although I did not expect people like Cercicus, Shiva, or even Odin, honestly, I feel like power corrupts people. Hades sighs in response. Then again, power corrupts Perse. I was also corrupted by the desire to gain more power, especially after you were killed. Hades spoke with a grim tone as Persephone kept her hand on Zeus's and spoke with an assuring tone. I won't go anywhere, darling. I won't leave you ever again. Persephone spoke with a solemn smile. She knew how much her death affected Hades. The factions hated their counterparts, as they agreed with this Hades's words of them being corrupted with power. while Persephone knew how much her death affected Hades, causing him to become a monster. Hades himself looked down. He did not know if he can ever set things right for the amount of crimes he has done. Hades was all alone for centuries after the death of his wife. By the hands of a Longinus user, he managed to torture the hero. But after that, he lost himself to darkness and became a being that hated devils, angels and fallen angels, holding them responsible for the death of his wife. His hatred even reached any Longinus user as well. He gave up his human form and became the skeleton god many familiarized for a very long time. Was no exception to his hatred, as he often looked down upon the boy when he first met him during the raiding game between Rias and Seirg, back when Di was still a PAW and low-class devil in Rias' peerage. Issei was just there as a spectator, as he never fought or met Rias' cousin in his fight. Some more people felt sad for what Hades went through, while the others knew that this Hades was different, thanks to Issei looking out for him before. Sarg spoke to Sigvara. I wonder what else is different. Siglara looked at Sarglara and responded, I think a lot. He did visit him later on, as he was the one who gave the Cow's Brigade, Samuel's poison, only for him to be greeted by the angry god, who demanded his presence in his domain. A fight nearly broke out, but Issei requested peace as he did not want to fight him. He always wondered why the god looked down upon Longinus wielders and the races from the three factions. He initially never told him, but after pestering, he relented and told him about Persephone. He told everything. Issei understood his pain, and by that time he had found the Book of Conceptual Creations. He decided to help him. Hades called it a bluff, believing that his wife's soul is long gone. However, he managed to clone Holy Grail. Since he was aware of RageRevan unsealing the seal of the biblical god, he was going to clone all sacred gears that the biblical god had used to seal the beast, and make a seal that would be strong enough to permanently seal Trihixa in an event he had been released. It turns out, once he removed the limiters on each sacred gear, he only needed to use 3, since no matter what he does, he was never able to recreate the true Longinus perfectly. That was the only sacred gear that he failed to recreate, no matter how much he tried, since he was too focused on creating the seal. The 3 sacred gears were the Holy Grail Sephiroth Grail, the Holy Cross Incinerate Anthem, and finally the Holy Nail Alphika Tyrant. The third one was still not found by the factions yet. Hades remained quiet upon knowing about the Holy Nail, also known as the Alphika Tyrant, and who was its current wielder, as the other factions remained silent about it. He also knew who wielded it. The other factions were stunned by this revelation. Another holy relic? Michael asked with surprise as Gabriel responded, along with Uriel, brother, the user has to be somewhere in this world. Indeed, we don't even know what it can do, and what it is capable of. Uriel's words made Hades slightly nervous, which was noticed by Persephone. He knew something that no one did. She also looked at Nyx, who seemed equally nervous as well. She decided to talk to them later. You will see what the Alphika Tyrant is capable of. It will be playing a vital role in the story. Revan's words made the audience note down what it is capable of. He then used the Holy Grail to find where her soul was. It turns out all those souls that have been destroyed end up in an alternate dimension, as Issei calls it purgatory, where there is no escape. It is like an empty void where the soul can do whatever they wanted. It is like a whole different world to anyone that does come here. That is why the original Holy Grail wielded by Valerie Tips failed to resurrect those souls that have been destroyed. But nothing was impossible for this version of Holy Grail, since due to its removal of its limitations, the Holy Grail can enter into dimensions like these and bring out souls trapped in this dimension. He also encountered Rainer and her group, whom he promptly ignored. His main focus was to reach Persephone, and he found her. He found her sitting on the ground and closing her head in her knees, curling up in a ball and crying. She has been stuck here for centuries, if not millennia. She can never meet or love. When she saw Issei being her hope, she was reluctant at first, but Issei convinced her bring her back in the arms of her lover, Hades. Persephone nodded in agreement with Issei's thoughts. She remembered the state she was founded. The factions pitted her for what happened to her. So you're telling me that purgatory is where destroyed souls go? Ijuka asked with surprise, to which Revan nodded. In this universe, yes, and it is true even in yours. Even Rainer has experienced this, Right, Rainer? The audience looked to Rainer sitting far away from everyone who nodded in agreement. She remembered that there was no way she could have gotten out of that hellscape, not without someone helping her. Issei describes purgatory to be the true definition of afterlife, or more accurately, hell, primarily because you can never be revived, especially after your soul gets destroyed. There is no escape once you reach here, even from hell. Once can escape using the original Holy Grail. That was how the Chaos Brigade was able to revive beings like Grendel, Layden, and several other evil dragons that were apparently slain. Furthermore, Issei had to leave from that dimension fast, as his soul was being torn apart in the real world, and it was being sucked in this dimension. Whoever made this, made sure that even if you managed to get in, there would be no way for you to get out. He made it out before any permanent damage could be done to his soul. It is true, purgatory is the real afterlife that was encoded in this universe. Once you get there, there is no escape, and his might have been trapped there, had he stayed for too long. Revan's words made the audience dread on what will happen had they gone to purgatory. They knew that there was no escape from that place. Many were happy that Issei made it out alive. While Rainer hated what happened to her and her friends, she was trapped there for so long, until Revan released her from that hell. After pulling her out of purgatory, Issei contained her soul in the Grail. Hades was more than ecstatic to meet his love again, although they needed a body. This was not a problem since Hades somehow managed to preserve her body as a memory for the unjust death that happened to her, and all Issei had to do was transfer her soul. It took a while for Persephone to wake up and adjust to her life inside of her old body that was not moved for centuries, but she did. However, she learned of Hades' actions, and needless to say, she was not happy, she was furious, and she made sure to teach Hades a lesson that he will never forget. After dealing with his wife's wrath, he begged for forgiveness, which was surprising. She made sure that Hades changed for good, which he did, on his own accord. Issei was surprised to see a completely different side of Hades, but he was happy for them. Hades and Persephone were grateful for what Issei did for them. Well, Persephone made a mental note to make sure to deal with her Hades and make him apologize to the factions for what he had done. Issei still remembered Hades' screams of fear and pleas of mercy. He pitied the god. Both Persephone and Hades were eternally grateful to Issei, as Persephone finally met her daughters after a very long time, and the family was now a happy family. They asked Issei to visit, which he did often and whenever he could. Over time, both Persephone and Hades started to like him even more, and Issei also became close to them. They became very important to his life, so much so, he started to share his secrets to them and trusted them more than his biological family and his friends. Persephone remembered everything. She held her hand. As Hades looked at her with a solemn smile, Issei risked his own soul to rescue hers, and he was not going to lose her again. Both fell into their own pink world. Issei decided to eat his food in silence. However, the sound of crockery managed to snap them out of their pink world. The god couple had a small red tint, while the others smiled at how Hades and Persephone were. Some were still appalled by how the couple once were and what tragically happened to them, thanks to a rogue Longinus wielder. No, carry on, don't mind me, Issei spoke with a smile, as steam came from Persephone's ears, and Hades looked away embarrassed. Both were in a blushing mess. The duo became even more embarrassed at the blatant affection that their counterparts were showing. Some of the audience were happy seeing this side of Issei. He was still the same Issei that once cared for them. Speaking of which, how is Nyx doing? Issei asked with concern, to which both the god and the goddess smile at each other and tease him. So the lover boy has decided to go to his girl, Persephone spoke with a teasing smile, which caused Issei to stutter and blush. Well, Issei stammered, as Persephone chuckled. Oh, don't worry, you can visit her tomorrow. Persephone spoke with a smile. Nyx was starting to have a small red tint on her face, however she quickly shook her head in denial, thinking of the possibility of having a relationship. She respected Issei, but she was not sure about having a relationship with him. Ingvild was not happy with what she was witnessing, while Mary pondered on whether the Nyx in the theater would fall for her brother. Right now Ingvild is taking care of him, and that was more than enough. Similar thoughts were present in Yasaka, Olmenholt, Leif and Valerie. The girls from Issei's old harem were looking down in sadness, knowing that their Issei is as good as gone. They started to realize the gravity of what they did. They were too hasty in abandoning him. Oh, and even she was demanding, "Where have you been? You know I have told my guards that you can visit her whenever you want, right?" Hades spoke with a smile. He was aware of Issei's love for the primordial goddess. Even they were surprised as they knew of his constant visits, but they chose to ignore it. "Yeah, but you know I have been busy, right?" Issei spoke, while rubbing his tone, with both of the gods being well aware of Issei's plans and actions. Yeah, you and Malik doing all those stuff, but Issei, you know we are worried?" Persephone spoke with a tone of concern as Issei responded. "You know I will be fine, right?" "Wait, our counterparts know?" Persephone asked with a surprised tone, to which Revan spoke. "Yes, and although they are not fighting for ease, they know of his actions and are supporting him by keeping it a secret." "Why is that?" Sergichus asked with concern, knowing that since they are different from their counterparts, as Revan spoke, they see them for who they are, so they will not support them, and they have no reason to support them in any way, especially after how Issei was treated. The factions hated their counterparts, knowing that they were the cause of all this. They could only hope that things would get better with their Issei unlike them. "But even then, at least don't do anything at night, Issei," Persephone requested Issei, as Issei sighed and spoke. "All right. Only for you, and even I am tired as well." Issei spoke with a sigh. Persephone and Hades agreed in happiness, as they all started to discuss on their future plans to an outside viewer. This seemed like a normal family dinner, aside from two people heading to college, that is. The audience felt a little bit relieved knowing that Issei was having a normal and happy life. Reban then spoke. The scene changes to the High Vu residence, where the factions have been starting to suspect that Dai may not be the hero that they assumed him to be. However, many still believe Dai to be their true hero and savior. "I told you that you will suffer the consequences of your actions," Crom spoke as he manifested from the gauntlets. "Damn it! How can he get this powerful?" Dai spoke in a frustrated tone, not happy hearing what Crom had spoke, as the evil dragon responded. "He trained himself, unlike your sorry non-existent ass that only took credit for the work he did. After all, you and I both know that he was the one to seal the Beast of Apocalypse Trahixa when you and Valerie failed to do so," Crom declared in a mocking tone while putting an emphasis on he and you. Some of the audience were outright livid at how callous Dai is, while others were disgusted by his actions. Even Ryu himself hated his counterpart for what he had done. The hiatus were disgusted at how far he had fallen. They hated him even more, at this point. I gritted his teeth in response, as he shouted while punching a nearby wall. "Damn it, I should have eliminated him before he could have been this strong." Crom only laughed in response, angering him even further. "What's so funny, Crom? The fact that you can think of eliminating him even after he humiliated you in front of your lackeys, even before refusing to help you, is the funny part, my stupid host." Crom spoke in a mocking tone before cutting off the connection, leaving a frustrated and screaming Dai. The audience were appalled and horrified by what they had witnessed. He was a psychopathic monster in every way. Even Raynor was pale by what she had witnessing. Even she wouldn't go far to take her own allies down. This was too much for her. "He's a monster," Mary muttered in disbelief, horrified by what her little brother could potentially become. This was too much. Those that were with Dai feared for what would happen to their counterparts. This included even Ingvild, Yusaku, Valerie, Leif, and Ilmenheld. They were pale on what their fates would become of their counterparts. Funu was scared as she saw Dai as her father figure, while Yusaku held her daughter close. She does not want her daughter near that psychopath. However, he was being watched by Ingvild, who only nodded her head sideways as she spoke in disappointment in herself. "And to think I loved you, you really are a scum, aren't you, Dai?" Ingvild spoke coldly as she walked away to head to her room to sleep. "And you are a hypocrite," Ingvild angrily responded, to which some of the audience agreed to Ingvild's words. Even the others nodded, seeing how much of a hypocrite this Ingvild was. The scene changes to Ingvild in a dark void in her Qua Academy uniform as she looked on, asking, "Where am I?" Suddenly, Graphia appears in front of her as Ingvild was surprised to see her here. "Graphia? What are you doing here?" Ingvild asked in surprise as she was met with a loving smile as she responded, "Don't you know?" "Know what exactly?" Ingvild spoke with confusion. Well, you are getting married to die. Ingvild Graphia spoke with a smile. As all of a sudden Ingvild's clothing changed into a purple gown, she had a look of horror as she shouted. No. No. No, this cannot be happening. Ingvild shouted, as Graphia was confused, with her asking, What do you mean, this is what you always wanted? Graphia spoke while her smile, as she fades away, leaving a despair-ridden Ingvild. Ingvild was even more pale by this. She hated the fact that she was being married. It seemed more or less like a fever dream. Mary was calming her down, assuring that everything would be fine. Mary could see her future sister-in-law crying. Ryu and Issei Hyoudou were silent. They did not have any words for what they were witnessing, a fever dream. Rathia herself was not happy that in this fever dream, she was encouraging this. The scenario made the audience understand that this was a nightmare. The scene then changes to Dai wearing a wedding tuxedo. Ingvild was horrified on the inside, however her body was smiling, with her thinking, No. No. Please be a nightmare, Ingvild thought. I am so happy that this day has come, my love. Ingvild spoke with a smile, emanating happiness. Ingvild was smiling on the outside, but she was screaming on the inside. She was unable to move or escape. Ah, please, if you are listening, please help me. Ingvild thought, not caring for the headache that she would receive when she chanted the name. However, nobody came as she saw his parents, his sister, and the rest of her friends, all clapping in joy for what had happened. Her body was then pulled towards D as they both kissed. Although Ingvild's expression was happy on the outside, she was crying. She couldn't help but remain as her body was beyond her control. She was unable to change her fate. The audience were even more tense by what they were witnessing, while they watched Ingvild suffer helplessly. The scene once again changes. This time, however, Ingvild was wearing her gown that she had worn during her time when she first met D. However, there were two changes. One was that there was an additional Ingvild who wore something identical, who wore the same clothing, smiling at her condition, and two, she noticed that her hand had an engagement ring and a mark of a dragon. This meant only one thing, that she was now married to D. She couldn't help but weep at her fate, now that she is stuck with a liar, as her body can now show expressions. However, she was chained, she was unable to move, but only watches what happened next. But what surprised her next was that Issei showed up, with Issei calling her. Ingvild listened. Issei tried to speak, but Ingvild, the one that was free, slapped him in response. Ingvild was agape by what she witnessed. She was not only married to that bastard, but she also slapped Issei, the man she loved. Her counterpart's fate was sealed as she tried to cry. Mary could only watch helplessly. She hoped that this fever dream would end. The audience were also hoping for this fever dream to end. Oh, I forgot to mention. One Ingvild is called Ingvild Nightmare. The one which is free, while the other is our regular Ingvild. The audience nodded in understanding as they hoped that this would end soon enough. Issei rubbed his cheek as she spoke coldly. I told you to address me as sister-in-law or Lady Leviathan, and two, I told you not to bother me. I am already married, so I will not go out with you. Ingvild Nightmare responded, as Issei clenched his fist in anger, responding, You know what, screw you, you can do whatever the hell you feel like. After all, the apple does not fall far from the tree. You are no better than your ancestor Leviathan, almost as bad as my brother died. Issei spoke with pure fury and hate in his voice, with Ingvild Nightmare only scoffing in return. Yeah? I don't need to listen to you, you low-class being and deceiver. Ingvild Nightmare spoke coldly while turning away. Is this what my counterpart did to Issei? Ingvild asked with an angered look as RageRevan spoke. Indeed, this is something that happened to your Issei as well. Many of the audience were angered by what happened to this Issei, and Ingvild hoped that her counterpart never acquires Issei's love. No. Don't listen to her, I say. You are my hero. Not I. Ingvild shouted, however her voice was unheard. The nightmare version then saw Issei walking away as an evil smirk grew on her face. She turned her attention to her real self and spoke. You see, all of this is happening because of you turning away the real hero. Now you will stay with the one who only saw you as an object. Ingvild Nightmare spoke with a tone full of mockery while the real Ingvild was horrified. No, this can't be happening. Ingvild spoke with fear and guilt. It is, and I am afraid you can do nothing but live your life with a man who never loved you. Ingvild Nightmare spoke while cackling. As the other Ingvild could only weep and wallow herself in despair, Ingvild Nightmare then spoke. I wonder what would have happened if you actually heard Issei out even once. After that, Ingvild Nightmare disappears before everything changes back to normal. The audience sighed in relief knowing the fever dream ended, as they could only hope that things would be getting better at least for this viewing. Ingvild shouted as she woke up from her dream. Sweat was dripping from her face. She looked to see that it was all just a nightmare, but to her, it felt real. If only I could have realized the truth, maybe things would have been different. Ingvild spoke while completely grief-stricken. She remembered a part of Issei's words. I do not care for you, my dear Ingvild. I want you to live because I want you to see the consequences of your actions. I can't allow you to fall asleep now, can I? That will be no fun now. Right, Lady Ingvild? That would be mercy. And I won't let that happen. The audience shuddered, remembering Issei's anger with the children in the group holding their parents close due to fear. Issei's anger is something that many should fear since it is extremely rare to encounter. Rainer was shivering in fear as she was on the receiving end of his anger once. She feared and hated Issei at this point. She decided to have some water when she noticed her bottle empty. She decided to leave while remembering Issei's utter refusal to help the factions. She didn't blame him, why should she? If anything, him not helping them justifies his actions. Issei was not affiliated with any faction, he was not a devil, he was not affiliated with the Church of Vatican or Reincarnated Angel, or even the Grigori's human teams like /Dog. So he has no reason to help the three factions. Furthermore, they admonished and looked down upon him just because of him either being a pervert or a weakling. There should be no reason to help them since all they think of him was a tool that they can use and discard. The audience agreed with Isseiwald's thoughts. Even Ingvild, as much as she hated her counterpart, had to agree with Issei's thoughts. The faction leaders hated their counterparts for doing this to that Issei. They wished to make them pay for their actions. So you have finally realized the truth. I never expected him to reveal it to you. Ingvild was startled by the voice as she exclaimed, Beep. Relax, it's me. The voice belonged to that of a female. Ingvild turned around to see a cute young girl with long black hair down to her hips and black eyes. Her ears differ from a normal human's as they have pointed tips, although her long black hair makes this feature difficult to notice. Her dark gray eyes have reptilian slitted pupils. Office Ingvild spoke with surprise. Indeed, it's me, so your eyes have been opened, hasn't it? Office spoke with an emotionless tone, while Ingvild looked down in shame. Who Hyoudou really is, a fraud, an imposter, a little boy who is an attention seeker, for something he didn't do. Office spoke, while munching on a Cadbury's chocolate. Wait, Offa, your counterpart is actually working with this Issei. Azazel asked to Offa, who responded with a shrug. Yes, my counterpart, and even Baka Red's counterpart are working with Issei and Malik. The audience were now horrified. Their counterparts are really doomed with two of the strongest beings working with Issei, meaning that this Issei not only is being supported by the dragon gods, but also by Hades and his family. They had a feeling like they were on the wrong side of this war. Yes. I saw the cruel truth of who saved me, Ingvild responded as Office shook her head. But the question remains, what truth did you see? Office asked, which surprised Ingvild. I don't understand. Ingvild asked, confused. Is there something else I need to know? I know that Issei protected someone as stupid as me. I understand, Office spoke while nodding. Let's just to see that I was not the only one who had a hand in ruining his reputation. Ingvild widened her eyes as he spoke. But who would do this? Ingvild asked with sadness and confusion as Office responded. I will tell you another time, and besides I will tell you a truth, the real truth of Malik, and why is he destroying the factions? Ingvild was surprised by this. Wait, we know Issei is working for them. What else remains? Yusaku spoke with surprise, yet sadness in her voice as Revan spoke. The truth will startle you as well, but I will keep it for secret. No spoilers. The audience were not happy by this, however, they were curious as to what they will view. Wait, you can help us find who Malik really is? Ingvild spoke, as Ava's responded. Just you, The factions and the others have lost my trust a long time ago. Avis spoke in an emotionless tone, yet it seemed to be cold, and Great Red will be the one to show you this. He has agreed to show you this. Meet me in 5 days at the fountain. But why are you helping me? Ingvild asked in a sad tone. He was my first friend, and he showed me how to understand feelings. Office spoke with a smile. Despite her tone being emotionless, many of us underestimated him because of the lies shown by the factions or his appearance, or his power. But despite this, he still helped them. Time after time, Burr remembered this. Word of our conversation must stay between us. Apis spoke as Ingvild put her head down in shame and nodding. Apis nodded in agreement with her counterpart's words, as the faction leaders had no words for what they saw. They knew Apis was once working for them, yet he was treated with so much hatred. He was still the same as he, and they are responsible for changing him. They made him into their enemy. I think I should take my water and go to sleep. Ulfus nodded at Ingvild's words and left. However, unbeknownst to her, she left one of her snake underneath her shadow, which would take down Ingvild if she ever reveals what happened that night. I hope you listen to me, Alpha spoke while shaking her head. As she finished her chocolate, she looked at it, and missed sitting on Issei's lap. Please come back, Issei, Alpha muttered in request. The Alpha headed to the fridge to take another Cadbury's chocolate. She wanted to try Diet Coke. However, understanding that this was one of Issei's favorite, she did not touch the drink. While Lophus and Lilith looked towards Revan with a pleading look as he sighed and snapped his fingers. Here, don't go finish it one day. 2 chocolate bars came in their hands as they started to munch on it. Mary had a smile as she watched Lilith munching on the chocolate while saying, Don't finish it so soon, you should finish the rest tomorrow. Lilith nodded in agreement as she decided to finish half today and the rest tomorrow. Unbeknownst to both of them, someone else was watching their conversation. It was Valerie, who had teleported to the Hyoudou residence. She had bandages all over her body to cover up the blisters as well as the barrage of punches she had received courtesy of Issei. You're doing a mistake, Valley. Let's see how you react to the cruel truth, Albion warned her host, to which Valley mentally retorted. I don't care. I am only interested in seeing the weakness of Malik and who he really is. He hurt the people close to me, Valley declared mentally as Albion could only do one thing before cutting of the connection. I feel like I am going to do something really stupid, Valerie spoke while facepping herself. Even her team and Azazel couldn't help but get annoyed by this Valley's attitude. Even Albion knew that she is going to doom his counterpart as well as herself. Now, the next scene will be playing the next day. Alright, Revan started to play the scene, however this was what the audience was viewing. It was nothing but static. Revan, why can't we view anything? Kunu asked, to which Revan was himself surprised as he checked the viewing. The screen went blank as he scanned the device inside. The disc is corrupted, so I can't play the last scene of the viewing. Not only that, I can't play the entire viewing for now. The audience started to feel frustrated as Revan spoke with a smile. But fret not, I will prepare something for you guys the next day, so until then, you should all go to your rooms to rest. The audience looked at him and nodded as Revan spoke. Oh, and I have prepared rooms for you each. Couples will be assigned the same room. All you have to do is to see a room, and you'll be teleported there, okay? The audience nodded as they soon teleported back to their rooms, minus Ingvild and Mary, as Revan spoke. Oh yeah? You two will be teleported to the last rooms you were in, which in Ingvild's case, it is directly to Issei's room. The two girls nodded in understanding as they would be happy. They soon spoke room and teleported out of there, leaving Revan alone. Revan destroyed the corrupted device and wondered which viewing he could play for the audience. He smiled, knowing that this viewing would interest the audience as well. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Don't forget to support the author and his story in the description. Sayonara, see you in the next video.